Hello, I'm Raj Sark and I'm founder of UK-based connectivity startup Connectin Limited. We work in the area of Internet of Things, IoT, and build mobile apps. Now, as mobile phones are becoming such a big part of our lives, I'm always on the lookout for good mobile accessories. And it so happens I have backed a number of these latest innovations, if you'd like to call them, on Kickstarter and Indiegogo hardware projects that augment our mobile lifestyles. Now, this is one of the power banks I backed, and the key thing they have done is they have made it compatible with both iPhones as well as the fast USB-C charging port for my Android devices. Now, I happen to use both iPhone, Android, Mac, and PC. Always try to stay up to date with my tech. So when I heard about the Bluebat device hardware, I was naturally intrigued. Now, Bluebat seems to be attacking a very different problem compared to the usual stuff that I see on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Something I was not aware of actually, if how our charging practices affects the battery health, longevity, and especially the lifetime. So I must admit, I went into a deep dive research after starting to use the Bluebat device, and I'm going to share some of that research with you today. Now, since I do product reviews, I received a Bluebat device from the founders of this, sent to me, and after unboxing it, I have been doing various tests over the last 24 hours, and out of sheer interest, I have done a number of tests with basically 6 different phones and 6 different other smart devices. And my key objective on this was to see how these devices charge up. Do they overheat? How much of heat do they generate? And then I've been digging into the online research of how does this actually affect the device performance and the device battery. So to start with, fundamentally, all batteries work the same way. Ever since, Volta founded the first battery in 1799, I believe, the chemistry of the batteries have more or less matured. There's an anode, there's a cathode, and there's the electrolyte in between. But the innovation today, and you would be surprised how much of innovation is happening in this space, it really lies in the physics and, if you call it, the math around it as well. Now, since I participate in a lot of discussions on Quora, this Quora.com question and answer forum, I've been looking up Quora on what happens to a smartphone if the CPU is frequently overheating. And the answers are from emergency shutdown to actually more longer term damages in several ways. Kind of startled me that, my own personal charging practices, as well as usage of my mobile devices, I have never really considered this aspect. In spite of being an engineer, I never really thought about how the phone health is affected on how we use our devices as well as how we charge it. So that led the way to more questions on how would I prevent a battery from overheating. I don't know if how much of the screen is visible, but this is again another Quora discussion that kind of continues on this path. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit. So how do I prevent battery overheating? And there basically all the suggestions around this is there is a optimal way to handle a smartphone battery. And what I have been doing with my own practices definitely has not been too optimal. So that kind of led me into reviewing just the fast charging batteries using our lithium ion batteries, because one of the phones I got earlier this year is the Samsung Galaxy S10, and this particular phone came up with this super fast charging what do you say, the charging block, and a specific charging cable. And I was curious, trying it out for the first time, how fast is this super fast charging? And it literally took less than half an hour to go from pretty low, around 10-15% charge, to almost like 80% of the charge capacity. So that led me to kind of understanding, how does the super fast charging work, and is it at all good for our devices? Now, before we jump into any conclusions regarding that, let's take a quick look at the science behind it. So a lot is happening in the charging space today. Different companies are adopting different standards, from the USB power delivery to QC, which is a Qualcomm standard. But let's take a quick look at the science behind charging. I'm just going to minimize this, we don't need it. And just make the traditional way of making notes on why phones actually heat up and what impact does it have on the battery. Now, fundamentally, the power delivered to the battery while charging is in watts. So power in watts is basically the voltage multiplied by the current, I, in amperes. So voltage and current. Now, traditionally, and even a few years ago, the way most smartphones would charge would be on a USB power delivery system, having usually between 3 to 5 volt. Let's assume 5, that's the maximum. And they would have a current of 0.5 amperes. So the power delivery would be somewhere around only 2.5 watts. Now, that's very different from some of the more later standards, where the power delivery could be as high as 50 watts. And how can you actually do this without really blowing up the batteries? Now, we know with Samsung that did happen once. So the only way now to deliver more watts is either to increase the voltage or to increase the current. Now, this is exactly what different manufacturers are doing, but you need to be careful, like you don't do it at the cost of potentially blowing up the phone. Now, you might remember just a couple of years ago, Samsung actually had to recall more than how many was it? Like a few million units, essentially, 2.5 million devices initially, and then more. From what went like a dream Note 7 phone to a nightmare, because unfortunately their battery started getting overheating, and it was finally revealed why this actually happened, what made them explode. Now, more than 100 devices apparently actually had exploded, and if you Google image search, there's a lot of people who have shared their story, and this unfortunate incident of short circuiting, where the phones are trying to pack more and more power, make it thinner and thinner, and this happened to the point that there was a short circuit due to poor quality control on certain batteries. Now, Samsung has kind of really bounced back from this incident, taking QC very seriously, bringing most of it in-house in their manufacturing process. And they're one of the more rapid innovators in this space today. The Samsung Super Fast Charge, which I discovered with my Galaxy S10, that delivers 45 watts, is one of the latest innovations. But what's really interesting is how Samsung actually manages to do it, as much as how the others are doing this and still not blow up the batteries. So I'm going to minimize this because that's not needed anymore, and continue on the math. So essentially, the next big standard, that's the Qualcomm standard QC, that works with USB 3 and above, I think, ports, started delivering 9 volts into your 2 amperes. So it kind of delivers up to 18 watts. A step above that, slowly the current, remember it still has to be, the phone is a small device, so there's a limitation on how big the battery could be. That's one of the main reasons, even today, the annoying aspect of us running out of juice still happens, because there's only so much power and performance you can pack into the small pocket-sized devices. More so with devices like the AirPods and even smartwatches and even smaller gadgets. So however, the current per se could be increased, and 5 volt is considered like the safe high limit of voltage, except for Qualcomm, who has a patent on they can go up to 9 volts, but without the need to go into that, manufacturers have managed to kind of split the voltage into a higher current specification. So you could go up to 4, and then 4.5 was the latest amperes. It's basically using, if you've studied like basic electronics, there are buck and boost converters, and this uses it converts, basically steps up the current, and it can be done up to 4.5. So that kind of started giving us up to 21.5, 22 wattage. Now, some of the devices in the market today, including the Oppo, actually promises and delivers up to 50 watts of power. How they do it is no longer by stepping up and down the currents and voltages, but actually the innovation now lies in, let's say this is your smartphone battery. Take a different color, and let's start splitting this battery into 2 different cells that can do 5 volt each. So when you deliver 10 volts to this rechargeable lithium-ion battery, it starts, the 10 volt input is basically split into 2 5 volts, and then only the 5 volt output is used to power the phone itself at any one time. So that's how you can now split, essentially, using this tech. You can now have up to 10 volts that multiplied by almost 5 amperes, giving us 50 watts. Now, this is only possible in the Oppo phones. In the Samsung phone device that I use, it actually doesn't go up to 50, it goes up to 45 watts. And I'm not sure what's the exact tech used, that you need to really look into the patents in this space of who is doing what. But essentially, they are able to deliver somewhere around that 9 volt mark using some split mechanism into the 5 ampere current to deliver this 45 watt power. Now, with this, essentially, because of the splitting the cells, two things happen. The battery cannot really be overheated that much, and also some of the losses around, essentially, using this tech, almost we are able to get 45 watts of power without overheating the batteries by splitting them into two parts. It's almost like having two batteries inside the phone working in parallel to each other. So yeah, right from 2.5 watts, the early systems, 10 watts, which is most common, you can go up to 50 watts using this one is called the Oppo Voke, and they actually have a number of patents on this particular charging system as well. Now that's the math behind how the charging systems have evolved. So, is this kind of charging, especially the fast charging, bad for our devices? Not necessarily. It really depends on how much heat buildup is allowed. Now, for safety mechanisms, the phones will definitely have a lot of heat sinks and other mechanisms, cooling mechanisms provided. However, those are to prevent a calamity from happening, but not necessarily better battery health or battery longevity. Now, batteries do heat up, and all you have to do to get like how much heat is potentially dissipated is multiply the wattage that develops during this charging, for instance 50 watt, with 3.4192. That gives us the heat dissipation in BTU, this British thermal unit. And the more the heat, because the chemistry in these batteries hasn't really changed much, it simply means that there are the chances of the battery bulging, swelling, or even in rare cases exploding. Now, in my tests, I've seen the heat go up in these batteries pretty fast. Now, this is December 30th. I'm recording this video, and it's actually snowing outside in Glasgow, Scotland. So it's pretty much not a warm day, but I have been looking at the data. In sunlight, it would heat a lot more, as well as during the day it tends to show more heat when charging. Now, if you are going to do a video call and especially use your 3G or 4G, not Wi-Fi, when making that, you're really entering into a danger zone with any phone, and that's definitely a bad practice. Now, I did know that, so I mean, maybe even not a couple of years ago, but now I know that, so I don't tend to do a phone call during when charging my phone. But I actually, came across this concept. I started to consciously unplugging my devices. Now, this is something I was never doing before. So even without the Bluebat, I started becoming more aware of what actually, helps prolong the battery health of my smartphone as well as any of the smart devices. So with that, I started looking at how can I actually adapt this new tech, the Bluebat device, to in and around my natural charging practices. Now, usually I tend to put, now if you have started doing wireless charging, you're probably, you're not going to give up the convenience of the wireless charger. And what I did is I actually connected my wireless charger to the Bluebat, to the main line, and that has worked pretty fine. I'm yet to check with the manufacturer and the inventors, actually, if that's all right to do. But in my quick test over the last couple of days, it actually helped me use my charging practices as usual, except for that I would time it to precisely 1 hour or 2 hour, how long I would charge them, and delay the charging cycle. Now, different chargers and adapters have used different ICs basically to optimize the charging, especially the fast charging performance. Now, for Apple devices, I looked at the Apple website, and this is already in the market. It's a USB-C power adapter, and it actually costs like 50 quid to charge your iPhone faster. And it also needs a special charging cable as well. Now, one of these things I realized is now I'm always checking to look at the specification of like which charging adapter is compatible, charging accessory is compatible with what device. Now, it's always good to use the recommended manufacturer device. Now, if you so happen to use an iPhone, the fast charging is actually an extra feature, and it costs £50 plus the cable, which is another £30, almost £80 in hardware, just to get faster charging. For the Samsung device in particular, and I'm not promoting Apple or Samsung, any of them, but in this case, it was all included in the pack. Which finally, to wrap up, in terms of innovation in this space, Samsung actually has more than 1,000 patents to do with optimized charging, and now I think after their battery blow up incident, also enduring how can charging practices continue without the risks. Behind Samsung is Oppo with the Super VOOC and other technologies, also 950 patents in this space. Apple is actually one of the, you would call them a late adopter in this particular sphere, and also in terms of the patent landscape, only 300 patents in this particular area. Now, this is all, what's the next level stuff. So Vivo as well, it seems they have filed some patents around like the flash charging, which I'm surprised to see they would now take it up to, from 50, what's the current highest standard, up to 120 watt super fast charging technology. And in the patent, it discloses how they're achieving that, but it's not something that's in the market yet. In terms of the future of charging, it does appear that, and apparently Apple has tried this with the iPhone 10, they were planning to introduce the magnetic megaport, which either that and try to get rid of the charging port altogether from their devices and only basically allow wireless charging. Now, you would remember Apple was a pioneer in dropping the headphone jack, and we all blamed Apple for it. But it seems, Bluetooth earphones and stuff are becoming more and more the standard in this regard. Given the number of patents being filed around magnetic and wireless charging, including ambient charging, that's basically harvesting energy from the environment to give a quick power boost to the phones. Who knows, with all these, we might actually soon get rid of all these different charging ports and cables altogether. And the de facto would be wireless charging, although this is far further into the future. But that kind of leads us into the case of the Bluebat roadmap. One of the things I think it could be added is, first of all, turning this device into also an ESU, energy storage unit, which means it will act as a power bank in addition to optimized charging, as well as it can add key wireless charging. What other features are you excited about? Comment and participate in that discussion. And as one thing I always carry with me, that's like wherever I go, is the power bank. Is my power bank here. So I would be pretty excited to see this device as well evolve into a power bank and potentially even a wireless charging interface in the future. Share your thoughts, share your comments, and I would definitely ask viewers to consider backing this project or showing your support in your own way. And I hope you found this summary interesting. A quick disclaimer: this study revealed to me many things about innovations in the charging sphere, and already from this I have started to consciously unplugging my devices whenever they are fully charged, because sometimes I would just leave them for as long as, or just forget about them. Now, even without the Bluebat device, but when I have started connecting the Bluebat, it just means I don't really have to unplug them, remember, to do it at a certain time, but I can just set that timer 1 hour or 2 hour, whatever, and let it stop charging at 80-85%, which seems the optimal level. Now, so I do, I'm supporting this product, so that's the disclaimer. I know the inventors have crossed several hurdles over the past 3 years to get this device made, designed and made, and which is why I wanted to help them. And with Kickstarter support, potentially this will enter production. I am assisting the creators of the Bluebat tech. In fact, I created one of their the main product video, the 90-second Kickstarter video, and advising the team via introduction to manufacturers and so on. So I do have some vested interest in this product, but this particular test I did, this study was completely on my own and somewhat out of my own interest. Now, I do hope you have found this summary interesting, and I would love to hear, what your thoughts are around charging practices and about the Bluebat device as part of this Kickstarter campaign. This is one of the ways you can show your support. You can pledge for the product, but even participating in the discussion helps kind of understand the pain points around this product and help bring this to life. And also comment on the roadmap. That's it. So share your views, share your thoughts, and we look forward to engaging with you in this particular campaign. Cheers.